All right, welcome everybody back to another edition of whatever the hell this is. That's my intro line to my
I like
podcast,
it.
Chairgating. Yeah, so I don't know what we're going to call this yet, but we have this new YouTube channel where us racing guys for Belly Up Sports are just trying to talk racing in a more visual sense. And it's something fun for me to do outside of just my podcast. So now y'all get to look at my beautiful face. So, it's a win-win here. So here I am, Rattlesnake, host of the Chairgating podcast. I'm here with Terrance.
Yeah, that's what I'll go by for this one, I guess. Went
That's
by
what you're
Trey
going
last
by.
time.
Yeah, we're mixing it up. Yeah. So we just finished watching at least what we were able to see of the truck race. Um, what are your takes on the truck race? Here, actually, first before you do that, let me just explain how it finished. Okay, last lap. Here we go. Ross Chastain, and he's looking like he might get a win, but it looks like Todd Gilliland might get his first win, and he's in the lead. And here we go. We're coming on the last lap. That was the end of the race for all of us watching. By the way, if y'all didn't get to watch it, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not too happy with how the finish went from terms of Fox Sports' coverage, but I mean, it was a solid race there. Moffitt dominated in the first half. Your guy, Christian Eckes, he was up there a good bit fighting for the lead until one of his last few restarts, which they all went to hell pretty quick. So I was surprised to see Gillen come away with it. I figured Chastain would have found a way to put him in the wall, and secure his spot in the next round, but regardless, with some of the playoff drivers being taken out in some of those accidents, gave Chastain a big jump there in points. So he's looking pretty set going into Homestead in the round of four. Still a couple races to go, but IMS is looking like his place to seal the deal, so to speak.
Okay, so were you able to see what happened with Eckes?
Uh, there was just a little bit of contact there whenever the leaders were bumping around and stuff, and he just got shuffled back right there between like fifth and eighth. I saw him there a lot towards the end of the race, and I'm not quite sure how he
Yeah,
ended up back there exactly.
right. So he made his way back up to fifth, then got kind of pushed back to sixth, and he was fighting for fifth and sixth. And I was like, cool, he'll get, at least a top 10 finish. But I'm looking at it now, and I mean, I feel like what I'm looking at can't be right, but it says this is the results from today on Google from NASCAR. It says he finished 17th.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now too.
So what the hell did we miss?
I guess maybe there's that incident
There's
with
Harrison
Gilliland.
Burton all the way down there at 18th. Self was down at 19th, and all those guys were up in the top 10 before it went blank. So I'm just confused what happened. I truly don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not sure either. I know Harrison Burton got spun around there going into out of turn two, excuse me, coming on that last lap. So maybe they got collected in that somehow because he was running up there fourth, fifth about
Yep,
that area. So I mean, that's
it had
all
to
we
have
can
been
do.
that then. Yeah, we just have to speculate since we can't actually watch the finish of the damn race.
Yeah,
Um,
but you have some strong feelings about that.
no, it's just the most embarrassing part about it is like at the start of the race earlier today, I was tweeting all this great stuff about being able to watch a race on FS1 instead of the NBC Sports app because I have my issues with them as well. I hate them so much. It never works. It's always buffering and stuff, and it's garbage. I hate it so much. And then I get this FS1 race, and I'm like, yes, thank God, back to Fox, let's go. I never have any issues with that streaming service, and then this happens, and I'm like, wow, that's embarrassing because I was literally hyping y'all up at the start of the race.
Yeah, they kind of put that one to bed pretty quick there. But I mean, I'm with you. The NBC sports coverage generally isn't as good as Fox, in my opinion, because I'm trying to remember. Well, obviously Fox has Jeff Gordon, big Gordon guy here, DuPont. Just sitting around watching the race on the weekend. That's how it's been since I was little. But I mean, NBC Sports has been solid since I got Dale Earnhardt Jr. on board. I think he's just been meant for that. He's good at the podcast too, so a great person on there. But aside from that, really, not a whole lot going on for NBC Sports in the NASCAR department. I mean, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I mean, they both have like pros and cons, definitely. Because in the first half of the season, everybody will be bitching about Fox, and they're like, "Oh, y'all cut to way too many ads. You're always ruining stuff." I can't wait for NBC. And then the second half of the season, they're like, man, I miss Fox. This is garbage. So I think there's pros and cons to both of them. But the simple fact for me is I don't have cable, so I just rely. I don't know about you, but I just simply rely on the streaming services and the streaming apps and stuff. And theirs is straight trash. It's one of the worst, if not the worst, I've ever dealt with. And I mean, I don't say that lightly. There's some bad ones out there. This one's the worst, in my opinion. Whereas FS1, Fox Sports, they do fine. Like, I've never had an issue with them at all. So in terms of broadcasting, like, there's good and bad on both sides, but in just terms of quality of streaming service on the app, I much rather prefer Fox. But now after this, that was just bad.
Yeah, well, I don't have cable either. I got lucky and found out that PlayStation actually has PS View, and I had no idea what that was. But it's actually a small-time cable deal, which I got like 40 or 50 channels for $50 a month, and they happen to be NBC Sports Network and Fox Sports 1, so I got both of them. And I mean, NBC Sports on here isn't bad, so because it's the same thing as watching on TV, I don't have to deal with the app. So I can't really speak on that as much, but like I said, in my experience, I've had no problems with either of them. I think that NASCAR logistically is kind of hard to cover. You got 40 cars going around in an oval when you're trying to keep up with the leaders and what's going on in the back, who's moving up. So I don't know. I could see how on the mobile app that'd be a little more hard to, handle in terms of maybe like the software or whatever they got to do to get it into the app.
The big problem is just it'll like cut out at really important parts and say it's like buffering or loading or doing all this weird stuff. And it's not my internet. It's not my Wi-Fi because every other app works totally fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is. And I've heard other people online agree with me. They're like, yeah, mine's always messed up too. So I don't know what their issue is there, but I hate them. It's just that simple.
That's fair. Really miss like the old broadcast, TNT getting involved. That used to be like my favorite place to watch all the races. And I almost wish they'd get rid of one or the other, NBC or Fox, just to get TNT back in there and get like Brad Daugherty and all them back in the booth to cover some of the races.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. How long have you been a NASCAR fan for?
Since I was born, really. I went through like a 4 or 5 year stretch there before, whenever I was in college and into high school era. For some reason, I was like, well, NASCAR isn't cool, so I'm going to stop following it so I can fit in or whatever. I don't know how you'd explain that, but recently got back into it. Like as soon as they brought the car tomorrow, I was like, this is bullshit. This is not NASCAR. I'm getting out. The wing was just too much for me. But since they kind of changed the design of the car and the racing's got a little more competitive, I've gotten a lot more back into it. But yeah, I mean, old school guys, Dale Earnhardt Jr., I say old school, but they are now, but Jeff Gordon, all them, that's what I grew up on. So, peak NASCAR.
So were your parents NASCAR fans?
Yeah, actually, my grandparents owned a dirt track before I was born. They ended up selling it a couple years beforehand. But yeah, I've always grown up around racing trophies. I've been around the cars, been to dirt tracks since I was little. Just, experienced the whole breadth of racing, not just NASCAR, but obviously if you're into racing in America, you're into NASCAR to some extent because that's, the big league, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, just any stock car racing, short tracks, stuff like that, definitely. And you're from Ohio, right?
Yeah, southeastern Ohio, middle nowhere.
Yeah,
Athens,
damn.
Ohio is the closest one. Athens is like the biggest city within an hour of me, where Ohio University is.
Yeah, damn, that is kind of middle of nowhere, huh?
Yeah, there's hills and a river. That's it.
Yeah.
Depression.
Because I've been to like Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, all that area.
Yeah, that's not Ohio to me, but to everyone else it is.
Yeah, I think that everyone else in the world, that is what they think of when they think of Ohio. Okay, so truck race was good. It was definitely an entertaining race. A lot of wrecks. Guys driving aggressive as hell all over each other. So overall, it was a great race, and I was really enjoying it, and I couldn't wait to get on here and talk to you about it. And I was like, especially this finish. I can't wait to talk about this finish. So that's unfortunate that kind of ruined the rest because it really was a good race and everybody was enjoying it. It seemed like overall, definitely the truck series is great for seeing those young up and comers, like who's gonna take over eventually. Because we can say that with Xfinity, but with Xfinity, a lot of those guys are already driving in the Cup Series, kind of back and forth, up and down a lot. The truck guys are like, 18-year-old kids that you're like, these guys are the future. What are some of those drivers that you're looking at as the future of NASCAR?
I mean, I think the biggest one that comes to mind was one of the many race leaders we had today, Sam Mayer, the 16-year-old who just won the K&E, and I think he won the East. So, I mean, East, West, who cares? The guy's a champion, you know.
Right.
16 years old, he's only allowed to race on tracks under 1.3 miles. So we're only going to be able to see him limited over the next couple of years, but he's with GMS, which, you know, has Moffitt in there competing for a championship, who is a past champion. So he's going to be in good gear, and he's going to be able to progress at a faster rate than most people. But other than that, you know, Eck is your guy there in the 51 for KBM. That's a good ride to be in. So, I mean, he's going to have a lot of success, too, I feel like, over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and anybody listening to this that didn't listen to my podcast, which seems unlikely,
Yeah,
but
you should.
yeah, that would be weird because I'm the one promoting this. Anyway, yeah, if you didn't listen to that, go back and listen to the episode because it was a great interview. He's an incredible up and coming driver, and in that, I was trying to ask him this tough question, but he's the most recurring guest I've had on the show, so I don't want to like put him in a weird spot. Also. But I was kind of asking, like, what's the plans here, man? Like, I don't want to be like, are you leaving Venturini? But that's kind of what I was asking. And he answered it in a very, like, kind of, you know, wish-washy way. I think the best he could was he was saying, like, there's definitely offers on the table there. And he said one in particular that he really wants that looks like it might be working out. And I said, truck series full-time, and he goes, well, that's, like, the goal. And so, in my head, I'm, like, trying to decipher this. I'm like, is that a KBM, like, full-time? Yeah, so that would be sweet. So everybody that hasn't listened to that, go listen to it. It was a great interview. But, yeah, he could be great very soon. If he gets that truck ride full-time, he's going to be competing quickly. As we saw today, you know, he's running up top the whole time.
I don't know if we mentioned that, but that was Todd Gilliland's first win in the truck series. So yeah. I don't know if we mentioned it or not. That's really about the only I can think of. Maybe we forgot, but so that's about the biggest news from there. Even though we missed him crossing the finish line. So if all we know, Chastain may have finished first. Who knows?
Yeah, it's all conspiracy.
All big time.
They didn't want Chastain to win, so they cut away real quick and told us all it was Gilliland. And I guess moving on from the truck series. You know, there's not much else to talk about right now in the Cup, but we got to talk about Floyd Mayweather joining NASCAR. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe you've heard more than I have, but it sounds like he is starting a team. Does he have a ride yet? Like, did he get a charter? What's going on?
I'm not sure exactly how it works out. I did see. And I hope to God it was some kind of satire, but someone announcing that Derek Cope was coming out of retirement to drive the TMT car. And I was like, what in the hell?
There's no way. I can't tell what's serious anymore. I don't know if this whole thing's a meme or not. It's not like Floyd. I looked at his Twitter and stuff. It doesn't look like he's come out and promoted anything. From what I've seen, he has a 50 car. Does anybody drive a 50 car?
I don't think anyone in the Cup Series drives number 50. I don't believe so.
Yeah, so the art, it looked like, because I guess his record's 50-0.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he, like, got the 50. I don't know, like, where this is coming from, if this, like, is just fan art or if this is real. It seems like it might be real, though. People are talking about it like it's a real thing. Like, Floyd Mayweather owns a charter in NASCAR. And it's the money team. Always bugged me because you're not supposed to like abbreviate the in something.
Yeah,
that's always bugged me. I know he can't read, so it's probably a little much for me to like harp on that. But anyway, the money team, the 50 ride. If you could pick a driver right now to be in that, if you're Floyd Mayweather, or Floyd Mayweather comes up to you, he doesn't know anything about NASCAR, and he's like, who should I get to put in this ride? You can't take anybody from any other teams. It's got to be an available driver. Who are you picking?
I mean, depending, I've seen renditions of him being in a Chevy car, so if
right.
it is
I know that's a big, yeah.
Yeah, I know the OEMs are big into it. So in that case, I would say, considering he has the money to actually get, fingers crossed here if he isn't, that he'll do this, but get top-of-the-line equipment. It'd be interesting to see someone like Hemrick, out of his ride there, RCR, if he could get into the 50 and it is a Chevy ride. I mean, that would be probably the best outcome for him. And judging by how his past few races have been, he's actually been able to get to the front of the field there. I think that would be a good choice for Floyd. But if not, then I think you got to try to pluck Custer out from underneath Stuart Haas out of the Xfinity Series. I mean, those would be the two I would go with first off.
Yeah, I think those are the two obvious choices as well. Yeah, I think those are the only I can think of because Hemrick needs a ride and he's a Chevy driver. Um, and but do you take a chance with Hemrick, who has had experience with a full season in the Cup Series, but hasn't really produced much, or do you say screw it, let's just shoot for this young gun and see what he can do? Maybe he'll be the next star.
Mhm.
Uh, that's pretty much your two options. And the issue here is, you can be like, well, Hemrick hasn't had the equipment, which is definitely true, 100%.
Yeah, I mean RCR is
I'm
not
wearing,
bottom tier,
I'm wearing
but
an RCR hat, and I'm willing to admit it. I mean, I've met Richard Childress multiple times. I love their family. I love the team. But when it comes down to the equipment on the track, yeah, it's not there. So I totally agree with people when they're like, well, Hemrick hasn't had the equipment to prove himself yet. And I won't go into my whole Austin Dillon argument, but the same thing goes back to Austin Dillon in my opinion. Do you actually think that Floyd Mayweather's team would have better equipment?
I just don't see why not because of the money aspect. I mean, he's the kind of guy that I just feel based on his personality and his pocketbook that the dude's going to be willing to throw anything and everything because if he's going to start something, he would want to be in the front of the pack competing for a championship. I mean, the dude's 50-0 and he's all about that, so why would he want to lose in NASCAR? I would think he would try to get some kind of alliance with one of the top teams or get someone who's worked with those teams before to help develop something. I just don't see him kind of going in half-assed. I mean, I see him going all the way in on this one, if in fact he is, and this isn't just some kind of meme that the internet's trolling us with.
Yeah, I mean, I just, there's what Chevy cars have great equipment right now anyway.
Hendrick, that's pretty much it, honestly. I mean, Ganassi, I guess, if you really want to get into it, but they're just a two-car team, so it's probably a little easier to handle that.
That's my thing. I just don't. I've never seen. I mean, I say I've never seen. Furniture Row did it. It's just so difficult to have a one-car team, a one-charter team, and afford and produce great equipment. It seems almost impossible. Furniture Row did it, but they're closed now. So clearly,
they had Truex.
Yeah, they had one of the best drivers right now in the Cup Series, top 5 at least, and they gave him good equipment, but at the same time, they have since closed their doors. So clearly, that's not a business model that works. I don't know. It looks like it would have to be Hemrick or Cole. Custer, I agree. I just don't see it working, but hopefully it does. It's cool to see a celebrity like Floyd Mayweather interested in racing.
Yeah, and he's not the first. I saw a big old thread of different ones, and the one that popped out to me is someone, actually of all of them, is closest to me in terms of geographic location was Randy Moss back when he had a truck team there 10 or 15 years ago, whatever it was. And he's actually credited with 3 wins with Mike Skinner, who was pretty established truck driver. So it wouldn't be the first one to have success, but I do think with all of the stuff that he has at hand, there's no reason why he couldn't be the best athlete turned car owner.
Yeah, I agree, and it's just a good sign for racing overall when somebody like Floyd Mayweather, who's clearly a good businessman, or somebody is that works with him closely, they make a lot of money. So that's cool to see somebody like that interested. That has to mean that there's some upside to being in racing right now. At least that's what it seems like for me. So yeah, that's Floyd Mayweather's new NASCAR ride, I guess. Predictions for tomorrow. What do you think?
Just based on who's left in the playoffs and who I'm kind of pulling for, I think Denny Hamlin is the obvious pick there to win. It says home track. He's won there 5 times before. Punching his ticket to Homestead, I could see him doing the same thing like he did to Chase Elliott there a few years back, putting him in the wall to get the win. But a dark horse pick for me would be Ryan Blaney.
Is that just because we both have hair and mustaches like Ryan Blaney? Is that what you're trying to do?
Well, yeah, and I guess he's technically from North Carolina, but his dad and the rest of his family is from Ohio, so
Right.
I kind of pull for him, the Ohio boys deal.
Yeah, he's a big Ohio fan. I know that, which is lame. Nobody likes Ohio.
They don't. They really don't. I don't. I live here.
Are you an Ohio State fan?
Hell no. I had a Penn State hat on, but I figured I ought to trade that out before I get on here and openly say that.
Yeah, no, Ryan Blaney would be sweet. I've always been rooting for Ryan Blaney. I'm not much of a Ford guy. I like Chevys, so it's tough for me. But yeah, I've always really liked Ryan Blaney. That'd be sweet if he could get a win and lock himself in. Hamlin is the obvious choice here, and if this was a year ago, I would be like, nah, maybe not. But Hamlin seems unstoppable right now. I don't know who's going to beat him at this point. He's the contender. I thought definitely it would have been Kyle Busch at the beginning of the season. Maybe Joey Logano. But yeah, no, Hamlin stepped up, and he's the guy to beat right now. It's hard to ever count out Kyle Busch because when's the last time he won? It's
Before
been a while.
Kentucky, because I don't think he didn't win at Kentucky because Kurt beat him out. I was there for that race, but I don't think he's won since then. It would have been before July there.
It's not like normal where you're like, well, Kyle Busch is definitely going to win here. Like, nobody's been saying that lately, and I feel like that's the time when Kyle Busch is going to come back into attack and remind everybody why he's a champion. So yeah, I would say those two guys are the two I'd go with, which are like the lamest picks ever, I know. But yeah, I mean, that's going to do it for this episode of whatever.
We'll come up with a name later.
Call it Belly Up Sports, whatever. Anything else you want to shout out? Any plugs?
Just Belly Up Racing plug as always, anything to build our following, get more people involved with this. Who knows, could be on whatever the hell this show's called. That may even be what we name it at this point. I mean, come on. But I don't know. That's about all I can plug, I guess.
Yeah. So
you're more important than me, so you've got more.
No, everybody go listen to Cheergating, the podcast. It's the best podcast in the world, and I have the worst fans in the world. So everybody go listen to that. Be part of that terrible fan base. And yeah, my new thing is we're just trying to make NASCAR rad again. So
all about that, like you said, the hair, the stash, it's the NASCAR.
Yeah,
look. You got to get
that's
with
what we're going for. Yeah, we're trying to make NASCAR rad again. So hope everybody enjoyed whatever the hell this is, and we'll be back with more content from more of our guys from Belly Up Racing. Later.